Welcome back to you for another yummy episode. We've got another UFO video here, friends. There is so much to unpack from this Jon McMoneagle interview. Remember, he was CIA Spy 001, the first confirmed one, employed, helped the US government with a lot of stuff, sketching out in his mind spy plane stuff. He ended up figuring out, drawing that Russia was building this super nuclear submarine and making a new way how to actually launch nukes from the water. I mean, amongst so many other things, he did live psychic viewings, got him right. Oh my gosh, America's been hiding people like this right in front of our noses. It's kind of fascinating out here. But we got to go through a lot, man. Just check it out.
I will tell you that if it's not done completely blind and you don't understand all those other things about the science, in all probability, it will fail more times than it will succeed. If you truly participate and do it in agreement with the science that says, don't do this, or if you do this, it'll fail. If you pay attention to that, you're going to be sevenfold more probable of being successful.
That seems to be a through line in everything with quote unquote parapsychology. So
everything
in life,
yeah.
If you take a shortcut, the thing doesn't really work.
Exactly right.
And so we're talking about things that involve our perceptive abilities and our ability to kind of render the material world visually and
So very interesting, right? A lot of these experiments or intent is more powerful than we think, because turns out when there's a group of people, when they want to find a solution, they get one, they make one, they download from the ethosphere somewhere, downloads into their brain how to get it, how to find the formula. It really is the will and the grit to keep going. You manifest this stuff out here, and it's fascinating because that's also with remote viewing as well. Now I'm gonna just show you a bit of the history, friends, about, the American government starts getting involved to this. It's actually pretty interesting. Listen.
1972, the CIA starts to get intrigued. Right. I've heard from Hal Puthoff, who's one of the founders of Stargate, along with Russell Targ, that another guy named Ingo Swann, who's this artist in New York City.
They brought him from Maimonides Center in New York,
right,
to California.
Yeah, and he was just eccentric. He was a gay artist, and the way Puthoff speaks about it is that they put a thermistor inside of a Faraday cage, and then Ingo Swann was able to affect that with his mind. Is there something to that story?
We did 5 years of experiments to prove psychokinesis. That's affecting something with the mind. In 5 years and a whole lot of millions of dollars, we were never able to protect the target from outside effects.
So, see, friends, this was very balanced. I mean, like, talking about psychic abilities and stuff out here, he ain't cuckoo. He said, like, there's some cases where there were, like, claims that someone was able to affect something with their mind. And by the way, they've actually done this. It's very, very, like, there is a confirmed 100% success rate, but your effect is very, very, very low. So they've taken someone, like, I think you go like 20 meters underground, and they have like this little computer, and there's like these ones and zeros on a tape, and if you just focus, I think I forgot who did it. One of the maybe Uri Geller, I think he did it. They sent him underground and they did it, confirmed. Basically, you had to focus on the ticker, and it was always doing 50-50 ones and zeros. Out of like 1,000, it would always be 500 ones, 500 zeros. When he focused on it, he could get it 51% of the times to be ones every single time. 51-49. So they could do it. So it's measurable. It is doing, but it's very, very, very weak effect. Very, very weak. But it is possible. So that's why in this one, they couldn't prevent other sources from being affected by just pretty much whatever they're trying to test, right? This little Faraday cage. They couldn't pretty much guarantee that it was that person's mind actually affecting it, which I think is very, very balanced, because they're showing, like, we don't have all the science. A lot of it is weak. A lot of it's flimsy. A lot of things can go wrong. Sometimes you think you got somewhere good, but it was actually the tests weren't 100% valid, or for whatever reason. Now, friends, I want you to hear his famous submarine story. It's going to be great,
so to speak. We're not just me. There were two people.
Who are the two? Hartley Trent and
another guy that I promised him I'd never say his name in public. Okay. He's a retired colonel.
Just going to make people more intrigued now.
That's too bad.
So yeah, they quickly ask him, who were the two greatest that you did it, that were actually able, had the highest win rates with you? And that's some of them he's even kept secret. So yeah, he's going to continue with the story now. Watch. The submarine story.
One of the things that we had as a target, it was a building, a really huge building. You could put like the Mall of the Americas in Minneapolis inside that building, and it wouldn't touch the walls or the ceiling.
What?
Yeah, and it was detached from water. It had no relationship to the harbor, and it was set off the harbor, and it had guards, fences, everything around it, and they had railroad tracks going in, carrying in tons of stuff, and coming out empty. And they couldn't buy a picture of the inside of that building. They were offering, I think, $2 million at one time for one picture of the inside of the building. Couldn't get it. It was bumped up from a number of different intelligence agencies to the National Security Council, which is as high as you can go.
Absolutely.
That's run by the vice president. It has representatives from all the other agencies there.
What year was this?
That was 79.
Okay, so under Carter.
Latter part of 79.
Yeah.
That was like my third target that I ever worked on. I don't know which one it was for Hartley, but we both worked on it simultaneously. We just didn't know each one of us was doing that. What I got was a really unique submarine because they were violating one of the major laws of submarines. They were putting two submarines together. And so it looked like two giant seas coming together. And they were using a whole new kind of welding methodology, which were high-intensity lasers. They were welding with a certain protocol. And the hull was done in a way that I can't go into, but it was different. And I said there were 20 tubes, but they were all slanted, which was the first submarine ever built with slanted tubes. Up until then, the Soviet Navy would have to stop to launch, which made them a target. So they slanted the tubes so it could be launching while it was moving. Every rocket on board was a MER-5, which meant it had 5 guidable warheads. So when it reached apex, the warheads could detach and go to different cities. Every warhead was like 50 megaton. Hiroshima was less than 1 megaton. So you can imagine the damage it would do.
So these are hydrogen bombs.
It could yes. It could park 100 miles off America's coast and eradicate us in 18 minutes. There'd be nothing we could do.
And that's really the front line of nuclear war.
Right.
These submarines.
That was the most astounding weapon system ever built. Okay. And it was the TK-089, which was the prototype for that kind of submarine. It had many of the attributes that came out in Hunt for Red October, 7 years later, 8 years later, I can't remember now, but all these things. And we filed that report. We did that in about 4 hours, filed that report with the National Security Council. It was sent back immediately.
So do you remember, fans, he's showing that he filed the report, as in he did the viewing. So to see all the details he remembers, like, okay, there's a weird welding thing. They put 2 submarines together. He's written all this stuff out, and he's going to continue because he sent up the message. He goes, okay, we have it, right? And he's basically going to get thrown in his face. Let's go.
The head analyst was the guy in charge of the whole Russian floor at Langley. His name is Robert Gates.
Yeah, Langley, CIA. Oh, Robert Gates
Robert
ended up becoming Secretary of Defense.
He later became the director of CIA and the Secretary of Defense. Okay? He sent it back. Note on top. Total fantasy.
Because they didn't think that submarine could exist.
And well, it wasn't even connected to water, so how could it?
Right.
And so he sent it back, and it had been taken to the National Security Council by another admiral by the name of Jake Stewart. And I knew Jake really well. And when he brought it back, he said, he was sitting with me in a room, and he said, this really upsets you, doesn't it? And I said, no, I don't care. He said, no, you care because there's a red line going up your neck. You're really pissed. So I said, no. I said, he said, so what do you want me to do? And I said, take it back. And he goes, okay. And he stood up, and I said, wait. I put a paper on top, and I said, we'll be launched in 112 days, Jay. So on the way, he stopped at the National Reconnaissance Office because he knew that usually I'm not wrong, especially when I'm pissed. So he arranged for 114 days out to have pictures taken of the harbor where it would have to be. At the same time, I attached another note. Somebody asked me, how big is this submarine? Because I was saying, this is really a huge submarine. And my answer to that was, it's 30 feet shy of the length of a Soviet aircraft carrier.
Oh, my God.
It's a monster, okay?
How big is that for the audience, scale-wise?
I don't know about length. That's why I had to say 30 feet shy of the length of a Soviet aircraft carrier.
Yep.
You can imagine something that launches jets matched with a submarine.
Massive.
I said it was between 60 and, I think, 60 feet and something else across, which
wide.
is very wide.
Yep.
Okay. So he arranged to have overhead take pictures. 114 days out when the pictures were taken, it was, the side of the building was gone, trench cut to the harbor, and the submarine was tied up to the side of a Soviet aircraft carrier to block view of it from the entry to the harbor. And this is north of the Arctic Circle, so the harbor was frozen a long time, usually every year. So they had these two giant icebreakers sitting there. They had broken up all the ice in the harbor, and it was sitting tied up to the aircraft carrier, and it actually is 33 feet shy of the length of a Soviet aircraft carrier. So I missed it by 3 feet. All the bay doors were open. So we collected more intelligence in 4 days on that one submarine than the entire Soviet subpack in history.
That's remarkable.
It then disappeared. No one ever saw it again. And they made 8 more, and nobody ever knew about the other 8. But you can assume, based on the data we were able to collect, we defeated their weapon system, because now we could identify it easily in the water, put a hunter killer on it, and track it everywhere it went.
That's a miracle.
Yeah.
Kind of like possibly global cataclysm saving.
Yeah, right.
So that's why I wanted to share that story with you so he can tell it. That's his like most famous case, like confirmed. U.S. military respects him for that. And like that was some bee's knees, big stuff out here. That's part of the Russia Cold War era. But yeah, it gets juicier. Now, I've always been curious about what's your defense? If people can do this, how the hell do you stop it? I was always just thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, well, if you have like your real plan somewhere, does that mean you have to draw decoys around it? But if it's weird because they seem to pick up what's relevant. So let him talk.
I got brought into the project in October of 78. By July of 79, we knew there was no defense against remote viewing. So for the next 20-something years and millions of dollars, we tried to develop a defense against it. There still is no defense against remote viewing. It fails on its own enough. I mean, 40% of the time, it just doesn't work.
But all intelligence modalities fail.
Exactly.
So it's not inferior to other ones. And when I hear that the program was sunsetted because it only works 60% of the time, that makes no sense. And as well as the rationale that there's no defense against it, but if it's offensively useful, why would you use it, especially if it's stopping, mutually assured destruction, as it has at least 160 times, probably more, because that was early on in the program.
My area of expertise was ICBM sites.
Okay.
Big, large areas where rockets were in the ground.
Wow.
But you could see the shielding over them, so that was easy to see with overhead pictures.
But when I hear stuff like that, there has to be a program now, if that's what...
The pictures were perfect.
Yeah.
And I even asked them once, why am I remote viewing something you can take perfect pictures of? And they said, here's the thing. You draw the whole place. So when we take a picture, we can only get the surface. We match the surface against your drawing. And if you're 80% correct, we can assume you're 80% correct about what's under the ground. And we can retarget those areas with different technology to prove it.
Wow.
So that's the value of remote viewing. It can be used a million different ways.
But if the incremental value is understanding on a more granular level what stockpiles are underground, how would that ever get sunsetted and taken out of government?
It got sunsetted because a vast majority of senators and congressmen caught dead standing next to a remote viewing psychic would never get reelected because it was used as a weapon against them in the reelection.
I think if I'm the government...
Very, very interesting. I don't buy that, by the way. Yeah, I don't buy that at all. These things, get every single edge you can think of when it comes to these. That's all military stuff out here. They open their minds out here. Isn't it interesting, friends, that all the tech and all these things out here, it's because humans want to kill each other. Like, they really want to kill the other guy so bad, they're willing to try anything. Oh yeah, you got an edge here, 1% edge here and there, and then it ends up like transposing itself to science. It's just strange how humans work. We have like this need to kill each other on the other island over there. So we're like opening our minds to this psychic stuff. Now, friends, there's a section in here in Vietnam, but he doesn't cover it in this interview as well. But he covers it in his Sean Ryan interview, and like this is so strange. So when he was in Vietnam, he had this one story I can't forget. Okay, now he basically in Vietnam, you know, when they're basically sleeping, they don't like sleep in a nice cozy bed. You sleep basically upright, just in case the thing gets raided. You quickly grab your gun in a second. Okay. One night, he was like in this little alcove or something, like this really tight area, and he was sleeping, and he had his pistol. Yeah. And he, it's so weird. Okay. He got woken up like 3 a.m. and he said it happened so fast. There was this black, fuzzy, shadowy figure that was raiding in. And I think, like, he thought, okay, it's the Viets, right? Viet Cong's gonna come try to kill everybody. He grabbed his pistol. It was either pistol or shotgun, I forgot. He starts shooting. And like he goes, man, I shot it dead on. I shot this guy dead on, and then he ran off. Now, they went outside to chase it. Okay, this is weird, right? They went outside to chase it, and it jumped over like this freaking, like, you know, like 1.5 meter, 5 feet fence that they had. It jumped over and went over it, okay? So they just thought, oh, it's probably some young Vietnamese kid, whatever. Now, it left a trail of blood. Okay, now this is wild, right? This is Jon from Vietnam. Okay, because he asked him, that's why Sean Ryan asked him, what was the spookiest thing, weirdest thing that happened? Now, what ends up happening is the next day, you know that trail of blood? They, like in the day, they found a bit of the trail. They went around, they looked around, they found that where they shot, there was blood and there was fur. All right, there was fur. And they said, but they didn't know it was fur. It looked like dog's hair. So they ended up following the trail later on, and it pointed towards a village in the jungle. And they went there, and it was an innocent village. There was no soldiers or anything there. And they went there, and they went around asking the village, you know, hey, are there any like soldiers or rifle people in here? And there wasn't anyone. And they're saying, like, has anything weird happened in the past week or anything out here? Can we see anyone out here? Whatever's going on? And like, they ended up telling him that they go, oh, the doctor's sick. Now, this is just, it's okay. They went to the doctor. The doctor had like this, it was bandage. It was like he had gun wounds. Here's the thing though. The doctor was like 75 years old. Really weird. He's like, the guy could barely move it. He's the village doctor. The guy's like literally about to look like he's about to walk over dead. So the doctor's sick. The doctor had been injured. Okay, and he said he could never ever, they never got an explanation. Unanswered, unsolved mystery. What do you think? Some sort of weird shaman out in the jungle coming out here. He goes, it was a shadowy figure, came out. He goes, he shot it dead on, you know, because they're sleeping upright. Yeah, weird, man. Yeah, I think actually when he came in, I think he said it had a knife. It was gonna slice. I think I remember that. So I remember that, man. That's his one spooky story, and he goes that he actually still stays up at night thinking about that. He goes, what was that? He goes, we'll never ever forget that. I've never heard anything like that before. Now you might say, oh, that might be that he could have just made that up. Yeah, he could. Of course, anyone could make that up. There's just something about these things, man. Now, another thing about Jon's life, he had a near-death experience, and this is very, very common. I mean, I've even made I've made videos on near-death experiences. I had no idea this was a thing as well. So if you just type in NDE, my channel, near-death experiences and evidence for life after death. So there's been the scientists, guys, that people have done these studies out here. They compare a lot of people near-death experiences. Now, how you can confirm this, people who were blind from the moment they're born, they've never had eyesight in their whole life, were seeing the same things the rest of us who can see were seeing. They were seeing the same stuff. They're like, oh, is that what like a rainbow or whatever looks like? Or that's what this color looks like. They can actually see the color. They go, oh, I've never seen that. Is that the color? That's what the blue looks like. Really, really. Like they'd never seen these things before. And yeah, and a lot of it, that's why we always thought, oh, maybe it's a bit of the DMT in the brain or anything out here. There's always an entity. Very, very strange as well, friends. If you remember, there's Brian Watts, who he's got like terminally ill cancer. He died in the hospital bed. He's a trader. He trades the yen, trades like, it's called Mr. Yen. I think he trades the S&P 500 now. It was really weird. He talked about his near-death experience once, and he goes, yeah, you guys are going to be in for a pretty cool surprise. He goes, he called it some anthropomorphous object. I think it's kind of like, it kind of looks humanish, but it's not. And he says, oh, you have to go back. That's all he ever mentioned about it. I was like, dude, that's weird. Because he doesn't enable comments on his stream or anything, I think on his YouTube channel. Because I've been watching it the near time, and he goes, oh, yeah, I had a near-death experience. He goes, oh, I did say it pretty much happened to me. Like, I passed away, went down this light, and it looked like this. Yeah, it's just, it is wild. So it's interesting as well with his near-death experience.
Jesus. Yeah. Do you remember, I mean, you're coming out of this experience saying God is a white light.
Yeah.
You can't die.
Yeah.
Do you remember that as being sort of a conversion experience? Did you feel a sense of divine contact?
It was so profound, I just can't tell you. When it happened, I was getting ready to eat a dinner with my wife, who they had brought to meet me. We were going to stay a weekend in this guest house. And then she was going back to quarters, and I was going back to work. I can't tell you what I was doing, but I was going back to work. And the guy that brought her was my friend that worked for me. So he brought her there. He was going to leave, and we talked him into staying and having dinner with us. And then he was going to leave, and we were going to stay there a couple of days. Well, we had before dinner drinks. When I drank part of the drink, I started feeling like I was going to projectile vomit.
Oh, no.
So I didn't want to be in the restaurant doing it. So I said, excuse me, and I headed for the door. And I was in a rush. And when I hit the door, it was a swinging glass door. When I hit it with my hand, it was like somebody snapped their fingers. And I was standing outside on a cobblestone road with my hands out like this. And it was raining. It was a soft, like one of those soft summer rains, you know? And the rain was going through my palms. And I went, what the hell? And I looked up, and there's this figure half in and half out of the door. So I drifted over there. And that should have been a giveaway, by the way. I drifted over there. And as I was going over, my friend came out, pulled me up in his lap. Back then, there was no such thing as CPR. So he started punching me in the chest and yelling at me, breathe, you know. And every time he hit me in the chest, I was in my body in excruciating pain, looking up at his face. And I was trying to say, stop. And about the time I get the stop out, I'd be back standing on the cobblestones watching. This happened like 4 or 5 times. And then I stayed out and I watched. And he got up. My wife dropped to the pavement with me. And then he showed up with my car and put me fireman's carry into the back seat. It was a little bug, a Volkswagen bug. And they took off. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So I'm like zipping along beside the car. Back then, they had to go through 2 checkpoints, Austria to Germany, which meant running the checkpoint, which they did. And drove a little ways and then went out and then back in again.
Yeah, so he continues on going through like the hospital and stuff out here. So like, man, it's like so many different walks of life. There is this near-death experience. One of you, there's a gentleman, friends, friend of the channel, one of you told us about your story. I still remember your comment. I think it was like maybe a year ago where you OD'd. Yeah, there's one in this channel, like our comment section. There's a baby doll in here. You OD'd years ago. And it wasn't the last time you ever OD'd. You OD'd on the pavement. And then you had that 3D thing. And then like when, yeah, because I still remember his comment. He's like, something that happened to me I was ODing. I was actually on H, the heavy stuff. And someone rescued him. And when he awoke, he was like, why'd you bring me back? Yeah. So why I remember that story, because I'm listening to that story, I thought it was going to be accompanied with, and that's the last time I did the drug. But it was actually like, oh yeah, I did it. That was the last time. I still tried to kill myself after. That's why I was like that. Sorry to laugh. I was expecting like, wow, such a prophetic experience. But you don't even understand the importance of something like that. You just think, oh yeah, that was one of those times, you know? It was just one. I think you're like, yeah, I still remember that story, man. So whoever you are out there, sir, God bless you. I still remember that pierces through my brain, hearing something like that. Interesting as well with Jon, with his story, after he had those, he didn't want to do any fighting or war anymore. Become more like a pacifist. He's like, no point fighting. He goes, this is not, you can't even delete yourself out of existence, your consciousness, you're always going to be around. You're going somewhere else. Very interesting. Yeah, he became more like, well, there's no point fighting anymore. So very interesting. And like, in fact, Jesse asks him a bit, and Jon gets a bit uncomfortable admitting this, which is interesting. So Jon, who's like, no, it's not like that. Because I looked up what's a pacifist. It's somebody who thinks like fighting is useless. Right? That's because you heard the word pacifist, you think like, what is a pacifist? Okay, so you think it's like somebody who's like, oh, you're passive, but no, a person who believes that war and violence is unjustifiable. Okay, so he was like, no, I don't think it's like more like that, but because he's an army dude. There's always, oh yeah, if the enemy's attacking you, war is justifiable. But yeah, his whole actions, he's like, oh wow, is that what it's like? Okay. Now, friends, we have been building up to this. So now you've seen a lot of Jon remote viewing. There's a lot of this science, not even pseudoscience. It's just beyond what we can understand right now, but it is happening, whether people like it or not. The most interesting part is the one he doesn't even like talking about, which is what he was able to remote view on Mars. Now, he doesn't like it because you can't corroborate. You can't actually go check that. There's no spy planes. There's no people. You can't check it. It's like this thing came to me and it is what it is. But man, this part, his friends, is like what NASA's got. You know, this obviously there was life on Mars millions of years ago. I don't know what they look like. Jon said they look like humans. They're just twice as tall. Also, if he's going to explain, just to show you stuff. Friends, this is more wild. Scientists have found out you and I as humans, our circadian rhythm is more linked to Mars than it is to Earth. Wild. So it's kind of like we're the aliens, if you think about it. It's like we're not even really from here, right? We're planted from here. If you subscribe to that, it's wild. Let's go.
Oh, please don't do that.
Mm-hmm. Joe, what happened on Mars a million years ago? What did it look like? Set the scene for us.
Well, going back to that, DOD decided, since I had spontaneous out of bodies, that I should try to learn how to control them, to see whether I could collect intelligence doing that too. So they hired Bob Monroe to help me with that, because he's the guy, journeys out of the body guy. So they actually paid him to train me. So every Thursday night, I would leave right after I finished the remote viewings. I would drive down to the Institute here in this town and crash. I'd get there about 11. And then early in the morning on Friday, I would start working in the lab with Bob. We worked there Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So he's going to begin the story. He's he's obviously warming us up to him going through Mars. So yeah, just to continue more.
He said, I have some people here from DOD. They brought a target. And I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, I have the envelope in my shirt pocket.
Just to quickly stop you, friends. DOD, he says DOD like 15 times in this whole interview. DOD, Department of Defense. DOD have, if you've been watching me, friends, I follow Ashton Forbes. Ashton's also following me, friend of the channel. So Ashton, nuclear, remember friends, when we get energy, you heat something up and you get an energy out there, nuclear fusion or whatever. So if you cool something down to zero, it's called cold fusion. Now, cold fusion, Wikipedia and all these other science stuff, they call it pseudoscience. They say you're cuckoo. But actually, the Department of Defense shut down like 30 labs who proved it like decades ago because they're using it to do the anti-gravity stuff. So they cool something down to zero, which we can all do. It's so much easier than getting the energy of the sun, right? You cool something down to zero, you can actually get an energy field somewhere. So the Department of Defense is like psyopsing the whole world. You know, they're part of it with NASA and stuff out here. So that's obviously who is collecting stuff out for, and then he never gets answers. But let's continue.
They gave him a seal envelope he folded over, put in a shirt pocket. And I have a card here with GPS locations. So I'll read them to you and you tell me what's there. So the first GPS location he read was a huge pyramid. And I said, this must be a new discovery because it's huge. It's way bigger than the one at Giza. And it's got monster rooms inside, which is not making any sense to me at all. That's okay. Just report on what you're seeing. So I did that. So I went through 6 of the 7 targets, and whatever was there, I described it. And it turns out everything I described was there. And I came out of there. I couldn't do the 7th because I was exhausted. So I stopped. And at the end, I started getting an image of human beings that were trapped in a place where the atmosphere was turning bad. I couldn't figure that out. So I said to Bob, I said, the sun looks really weird. He said, I don't care about the sun. Just tell me what's going on. So I said, evidently there's some kind of calamity here. And so I started thinking maybe this is a future target. I didn't know. But the whole time I thought I was on Earth and it was a new discovery. And so I came out of there and I said, it's obvious that these people are dying for some reason, but they're human. They're just really big people. They're like twice our size, 12 feet tall, but they're just like us. And they're dying. And these pyramidal places are like hibernation chambers. They're trying to survive until somebody comes to save them. And he says, well, what is this target? It's just like a new discovery or something. And the guy from DOD said, Bob Monroe has the target in his pocket. So I pulled it out of my shirt pocket, opened it up, and it said Mars, 1 million BC, which made me angry. And I'll tell you why. I hate doing a target where I cannot prove ground truth, because then I don't know if it's real or I'm inventing it. It doesn't do me any good. And I can't actually sit there and say, this is exactly 100% correct.
It's unfalsifiable.
Yeah, unfalsifiable, but unprovable. So it made me angry. So I said, give me the card. I took the card and the envelope, put it in my shirt pocket. I said, the next time I'm at JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab in California, I'm going to find out whether they have negatives of these locations and get them. And Bob said, they'll never give that to you. And I said, they damn well better, because we pay for all those pictures with our taxes.
Yep.
They can't classify those pictures because they're in space. So next time I was in California, I went to JPL, and they have a big counter where you go in and buy pictures of space. So I went up to the counter, and the guy said, how can I help you? And I said, I have this card here, and I handed it to him. And he looked at it, and I said, I'd like to see the 4x4 negatives for those locations on that card. And he went, oh, this is the old city on Mars. And he turned around, pulled a drawer open, and gave me a packet. It had all the negatives inside. So they're in my book, Mind Trek.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do the negatives show?
It shows exactly what I described.
It shows pyramids?
It shows a big pyramid. It shows an old fort. It shows a wall that's collapsed.
On Mars.
And yeah.
Can I see them?
Yeah. I'll get a copy of my book downstairs, bring it up and show it to you. I mean.
Don't, friends, we're going to go through it later in the episode as well. So yeah, it actually does show the episodes. You can actually go and request it. It'll be interesting. Someone just goes and asks, knows exactly what to look for. But he'll explain later. Maybe I can show you the clip. The JPL and NASA, if you know exactly what to ask for, they'll give it to you. However, there'll be no explanation. There'll be no labels. They won't say, oh, old city on Mars, and this is what we know. They would never, ever say anything like that. Just like, whatever. So you can't ever say that they didn't do it to you. It's very, very, very weird how it all works, right? It's almost like it's full on psyops. It's like manipulation. Like they're like, okay, don't, like the information is there for the human population to grab. However, we're not entitling them to a story. Okay, we don't give them the story. It's just like, here's a picture. Very interesting.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's not the coolest thing.
That's so cool, though. You're saying that you remote viewed a pyramid on Mars 1 million years ago, and we found, how do we have imagery of that?
They're mapping Mars. But that's not the coolest thing.
So it's negative images of those locations now on Mars.
Yeah.
And you can see the pyramids.
They're heavily worn. They're just much damage to them.
But it's clear they're pyramids.
Yeah.
That look like they were man-made.
Yeah. In fact,
why did they look like they were man-made?
Well, I'll give you the reason why I know they're man-made.
Okay.
there's an impact crater. And on the side of the impact crater is a triangular piece of land that obviously has been constructed there. And in the center of that is a four-sided pyramid. Now, here's the cool part. You know the place of the camera, which is circling Mars. You know exactly where it is when I took that picture. You know where the sun is in relationship. So you know by the shadow, you can compute the size of the impact crater and its sides by the shadow of the sides. The side shadow in this particular case was 1/4 of an inch. That 1/4 of an inch represents about 3,000 feet. So the impact crater walls are 3,000 feet high. That four-sided pyramid on that little triangle piece of land on the edge of the impact crater has got a shadow 2.5 inches long. Now tell me how tall that is. That's not a pyramid, that's a shard. And it's thousands of feet tall. And I actually asked the guy at JPL, I went many times at JPL, I said, what the hell is that? I don't know. Best guess is it grew there. And I said, you're out your mind. If it was an impact crater that occurred after it was there, it would have blown it away.
I think it was from an
It was put there after the impact crater.
The shard was put there after the impact crater. By who?
So right.
What?
Exactly.
And what would I'm even trying to think of what the purpose of the shard would be.
Don't know.
That's fascinating. Do you have images of that?
Yeah. But here's the thing. Okay?
This is awesome.
I went out of my way to get a hold of other negatives. And each negative is probably 50 by 50 miles on Mars. So you have to look at that negative over a long period of time, line by line by line. I have probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 60-something photographs of things on Mars that are clearly alien.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what else? Okay, before we look at the evidence that Joe has, let's set the scene here on the possibilities of life on Mars. A question with a long history and numerous theories. More than 100 years ago, American astronomer Percival Lowell suggested that certain features that were being observed on Mars were not natural. Back then, in the late 19th century, the idea that Mars had seasons, vegetation, flowing water, even large rivers was kind of popular. We had to speculate because we had no way of knowing otherwise. A lot of this speculation was fueled by dark areas and irregular-looking patterns observed on Mars. But Lowell went as far as to claim that parts of these dark areas and patterns were purposefully built irrigation systems designed by a Martian civilization. These theories were contested well into the 20th century, but the question of trees, lakes, and Martians was eventually put to rest when the Mariner 4 space probe photographed the planet up close in 1965. These photos revealed an inactive planet, barren and apparently lifeless.
So yes, it's a nice setup to go through, but and then also talk about the face on Mars. Everyone knows about that, but yeah, man, it's wow. It's a lot of it is once we are all ready to accept it, we get more answers. That's how it works out. That's actually how the others entities works as well. It's been happening right in front of us. It's just we're not ready yet. It's interesting, okay?
Mile-long structure that resembled a human face staring out into space. The infamous face on Mars. This structure provoked a lot of speculation for more than 20 years. But eventually, higher resolution images seemingly put that question to bed, at least for most. The established narrative was that this was all just a case of pareidolia, the same psychological effect that makes us see familiar shapes in the clouds. Nothing but some shadows and angles of light. Questioning this interpretation became synonymous with quackery and conspiracy. The region of Mars that the face is located on is called Cydonia. Some researchers believe that the face is just one part of a larger set of structures in this region that also demonstrate unnatural features, perhaps even displaying specific design characteristics that suggest geometric patterns and intentional positioning, like stellar alignments. They claim that Cydonia contains multiple pyramids, basically the remnants of a city, all eroded over millennia. These formations appear to be aligned in highly unlikely ways, raising the question of whether their placement is entirely random. But it wasn't just the region of Cydonia. In the Elysium area, at the north, probes photographed huge pyramids, some 500 meters high, some with 4 sides, just like the Great Pyramids of Giza. And near Mars's south pole, Mariner 9 took pictures of what looked like ancient ruins. These ancient ruins were even informally dubbed by their team as the Incan City. Elsewhere, vast areas of monolithic structures, tunnels, even other faces, seem to defy explanations that they came from only natural processes.
So you're getting the point with a lot of these. Very, very interesting. Also, friends, obviously the mystery of the pyramids, just so you know, Jon's theories and a lot of people are working toward this. It seems that a lot of people on the bleeding edge, turns out, I guess those pyramids were power sources. They were power sources and they would channel to something else. That's what they actually were. And yeah, so where were they going to? Well, back then, when the pyramids were built, it was pointing right at Orion's belt, which is very fascinating. There's a clip in here. Okay, even Graham Hancock, everyone, you know, since like for thousands of years, civilizations across continents had the same origin stories of humans, where they say when we pass away, your soul does what I nicknamed the soul loop. That they all had the same story. They go, we pass away, you float, you go get judged somewhere, and your soul actually goes towards Orion's belt, does a loop, comes back. That's what these civilizations said like thousands of years across continents and stuff out here. So I always found it interesting, and the pyramids point to Orion's belt as well. I mean, like, this is nuts.
Processes. To be clear, I'm not at all denying that many of these features could just be explained by basic Mars geology. But take this thought experiment. If similar structures and patterns were imaged on Earth, using modern techniques like LiDAR mapping, presuming they had man-made origins wouldn't be so controversial at all. So why does the same conversation seem totally off limits when it comes to Mars? What if these structures are ancient? What if they're millions, even billions of years old? This raises another question. Are we seeing all the data? We must trust that organizations like NASA are sharing these images and data transparently. But this has been questioned in the past. For instance, Stanley McDaniel, a professor emeritus at Sonoma State University, wrote a 200-page book about NASA's failure to properly investigate the structures on Mars, and questioning why that was the case. Richard Hoagland made similar claims in, admittedly, his very controversial book, Dark Mission: The Secret History of NASA. Which brings us to the most recent chapter in this story. In 2001, the Mars Global Surveyor captured an image that has only just made its way onto the mainstream, causing a stir on X and gaining some high profile.
That was Joe Rogan. I posted about this as well. That's the square pyramid. So just to let you know, friends, NASA keep a lot of stuff. They keep a lot of stuff. It's not even a secret. See, these guys are all diplomatic. This is like, you know, this is pre your friend Somi appearing in the world phase and days where they're like, oh, I believe you are misrepresenting, or I believe, no, dude, they're lying sacks of shit. They're lying sacks of shit. We know they're lying. We know you're hiding. You're trying to manipulate all this stuff. But also, you got to be a bit empathetic. How do we know it's a human controlling it? We don't know. That does another thing, friends. We're monkeys in the zoo. The zookeepers, Mr. Aliens, they might be like, humans, you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet. We've got stuff planned for you. Maybe we've got to introduce it to you over the next 200 years, slowly. You know, like bits and pieces, androids, drones, information pieces. We drip it to you so you just don't lose your mind, start blowing each other up. You're not ready yet. It could be that. That's why there could be controlled out here. But it's very, very, very obvious. You can't, like, okay, the people who say all of this is hocus pocus, they've only spent like 6 minutes looking at it. Okay, you are the retardio who says, oh, Bitcoin can't do 100,000x. Okay, it was at 1 cent. It actually did more than 100,000x. It did 6 millionx. It actually did it did 100 millionx return. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen it. You know, if you said this wasn't possible, okay, because you haven't even brought up the Bitcoin chart. You see, that's when you start looking at it, you understand there's a lot of these multifaceted things that pretty much come in now. Obviously, Mars is very interesting. Even like Donald Trump even hints about it, like, you know?
Mars is given no credence at all. Now, here's the thing. If you suggest that life could exist in some basic microscopic form on Mars, even right now, perhaps under the surface or in some particular unexplored zone, I think that even the professional skeptic would accept that as a possibility. Even President Trump openly floated the idea that life once existed or still exists on the red planet.
There's no reason not to think that Mars and all these planets don't have life, you know.
And there is plenty of evidence.
So weird. Coming from him as well, man. So weird. They've told him something, you know? Now, this is going to blow your mind, and it's all real. I remember this. I remember the Israeli science professor saying, it just came out of nowhere. I'll never forget this. I woke up one day. I'm like, what is this psyops? I wasn't even in aliens back then. Israeli scientist comes out, just says, by the way, world, the US president, there's a intergalactic federation, and we've already met with aliens, and they've told us to basically just slow it down and stuff out here. Okay, and just check it out. It's all real. It literally is all real.
Controversy, there have been some more interesting claims. For instance, in 2020, Haim Eshed, the head of Israel's space program for nearly 30 years and 3-time recipient of the Israel Security Award, made a shocking statement. He claimed that the United States and other nations have had direct contact with a galactic federation, some kind of coalition of alien races that have interacted with us for years. According to Eshed, these beings have instructed governments not to disclose knowledge of this to the rest of the population yet because they want to avoid mass hysteria. He went
Friends, he is the former head of Israel's defense ministry. Out of the blue. Wild. Not so wild now, though. When it came out, it was, whoa, man.
Not to disclose knowledge of this to the rest of the population yet because they want to avoid mass hysteria. He went even further, however, suggesting that American astronauts are actually working alongside these extraterrestrials in an underground base on Mars. Now, of course, we can't confirm or deny this, but those interested in ufology will know that this isn't the first time that claims of meetings or secret treaties with extraterrestrials have surfaced. Something slightly more grounded is a theory suggested by researchers like Graham Hancock. He states in The Mars Mystery that there could be some connection between the symbolism of these eroded monoliths in a place like Cydonia and the ancient civilizations of Earth. At this point, who knows? There are a lot of possibilities on the table. Even the question of what happened to Mars to create this seemingly lifeless place is full of fascinating theories. Over the last decade or so, Dr. John Brandenburg, a plasma physicist and propulsion scientist, has found evidence to support his hypothesis that planetary-wide catastrophic events may have occurred on Mars. His theory suggests that high concentrations of particular elements created only via rapid processes, like in thermonuclear explosions, may have been caused by a nuclear war.
So yeah, just to let you know, on Mars, the rovers tested the sand, the dust there. It's got xenon in it. Xenon doesn't occur naturally in the universe. You need to make nuclear bombs. It's like you walk into a room and there's like gunpowder on the floor. Yeah, okay. Magically, there could be a plant out there that's just pooping out gunpowder, pollen. It could be that, or you're like, oh no, someone in here shot a gun a long time ago. I've known about this for a long time. Yeah. You want to see the photos on Mars, friends? There's actually photos of bones on Mars as well. Man, this is pretty cool, isn't it?
Maybe there's a reason we keep being drawn to it. Because something else is going on. Or it was going on in the past.
This is a bone on Mars.
What?
Okay?
That's on Mars.
That's on Mars. That's a bone.
What?
Yeah. It certainly isn't a stone.
That does not look like a stone. And you got these from JPL?
Yeah.
Really?
Come right off a negative of Mars in their mapping series. See these little buildings? One there, one there. Here's 3 in a row.
Buildings?
Yeah.
This is on Mars.
Here's a building over here.
Is it a picture from a rover or is it a picture from a telescope? Or
it's a picture from a mapping. Here's a curlicue. It's a picture from a mapping satellite. That's a satellite making maps of Mars.
Wow.
That is a non-natural edge. You don't get a 30-mile edge like that.
Whoa.
Wow.
It's by nature. That's a sheer cliff.
How long is that?
30 miles.
30 miles.
Now I'll show you where it comes from. Here it is. So that's that edge. That's just a deep chasm. That's a perfectly straight edge. It comes out of right here and goes straight as an arrow all the way across and then fades into the ground there. Here's a cavern, and it's got all this like wire stuff on the top.
So that's a subterranean cavern?
That's a subterranean cavern. You cannot see into it, but it's very deep.
And there's wiring?
That's wiring. Here's the interesting part. When we first caught this on Mars, there was a bright red light right here.
Wow.
That's gone out since we caught it. I actually have a photo of the light.
What?
Yeah,
what do you think?
Bright red light.
What do you think the light was? Well, that almost implies that there's something there now.
Yeah. Let me show you something else.
So there are people at JPL who definitively think.
There you go.
Is that real?
That's real. That's 3 feet long and that big around. And it's got buttons on it and a rotating thing
that
here.
was taken on Mars.
That's laying on Mars, man.
And if you sent that to like a NASA photo instrumentation specialist, they wouldn't be able to debunk it.
What they do is they'd say, bullshit, that's not off of Mars. Well, I have the negative.
You have the negative.
Yeah. So they can say whatever the hell they want.
And you can back it up with these JPL guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I will send you that.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'll send you something else very similar.
Joe, I appreciate it, man. This is amazing.
Not a problem.
So JPL is just sitting on these.
Yeah, but you got to understand something. You got to know exactly what negative you're asking for to get the picture.
Why would they hide this information?
They're not hiding it. They're just not talking about it.
But it's so mind-blowing and important. I mean, the other interesting thing
makes you wonder if the other entities are in control. That's what they're probably controlling NASA to say. They're like, hey, don't hide it from them. When they're ready, the people will ask. Ask and ye shall receive. And it's this like natural ongoing process. Very interesting. If you were to write a book, that's not how things work. It's usually, oh, there's somebody in a cabal, they're keeping it from you. No, it's another force you and I can't see that's in control, and it's for our own benefit, but we think they're hiding something from us, like they're lying for us to keep us like dumb and poor or something. That's human way of thinking. But they'll be like, no, we're trying to keep you from blowing each other up.
I'm just thinking, as you're saying all of this, is that it's been hypothesized even by conventional science that at one point habitable life existed on Mars and it was stripped of its magnetosphere, maybe due to an asteroid
because
impact.
it was moved. Something passed through our solar system and took inner area planets and moved them to outer areas, outer rim.
And what do you
think? Outer rim planets were moved to inner rim.
What do you think? What do you think moved through our solar system?
Some big object passed through our solar system that did that with its gravity field.
Yeah.
Okay. It probably stripped the atmosphere off Mars at the same time. It's impossible to know now. It could be a wild planet out there doing an elliptical orbit that takes 20,000 years.
Any other alien artifacts that you saw in these negatives?
Sure.
What else?
I'm not going to go there because this is all going in a book. But I got to tell you this.
We got to get the book out. Awesome. So, friends, I'm at the point now. When people come into crypto, I don't ask them, so, do you think crypto is a scam or not? It's a joke. It's not a scam. You empathize if they have a view where they think it's a scam, but you're not selling because of some retardio what their opinion is. Well, it's the same thing with this. If people don't believe in this, you've done no research. You're the sheep. You are the sheep. You're the reason why they just keep lying because you just don't ask questions. What do you think about all this? Does it make you scared? How does it make you feel? I've been thinking about this a while. I'm desensitized to it. Totally. Like none of this surprises me whatsoever. Got a lot of questions though, right? How did you have big pyramids, maybe amazing technology, and the cataclysm happened? Who took you out? Was it a natural object? You couldn't fly away? How come we came to Earth? All these questions. We'll never know in our lifetime. One day, humans will figure out the story. We'll get told the story. Maybe someone shows us a VHS tape of that happening. That'd be funny. Humans and these mysteries, and there's something else going on. So whether there's, honestly, you look at all these stories, even if you go, you know what, I just heard 30 wacky stuff. If just one's true, we're being lied to. You're just being lied to. Is it being lied to though? It's kind of like 3-year-old kid waiting at the bottom of the Christmas tree. And the parents are saying, Santa's real. Santa's coming. You better be good. You better be good. Maybe so the kid behaves. That could be part of what's happening to us. Whatever it is, more answers will be coming our way. A lot of people get frustrated because they just want to be told. I want to talk to those people. Be told what? Be told what? And by the way, would you even believe their freaking answer after everything? I remember zombie virus didn't come from a bat, did it? Came from a Chinese lab. They lied to you. They lied to me, lied to all of us. You really think whatever story they give, there's going to be truth? They're going to give you the truth anyway. But, in this life, the whole point of all these, there's an information gap. You keep an open mind. You manifest good stuff. If you have good intent, you have a good heart, if you have grit, grit is and the persistence to keep finding an answer and winning, you end up on top of everybody else in this simulation MMORPG that we're living in. That's pretty much what it comes down to, right? If you want to be in the rat race for the rest of your life, you're a blue pill cuck, go for it. I mean, I envy that life a bit, but for the rest of us, that life also means you're poor. You're financially poor, you're spiritually poor, you're everything poor. And you didn't come to crypto to choose that path. You came to crypto to win. Winning friendship. Like, subscribe, bet about it all. Catch you in the next one.